Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, April 7th of 2024. I can't believe we are a week into April in this beautiful year of 2024. Now, I have a ton of notes that I have been taking in my journal, and many of you know I was not here last week, so I skipped my message of love on a video, but I did send an email, and I want to just thank you to everybody who sent me an email back. A lot of love flowed my way, and it was very, very heartwarming. It was, I read every email that I get and respond as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. I did end up with a journal full of notes. Plus, I have some ideas that I wanted to share with you about tomorrow, which is April 8th, the date of the upcoming eclipse that we've all been looking forward to. And I wanted to just share some of my thoughts because I think that eclipses are looked at as pivotal times of change and transformation. And at least if we look at it that way, right? And I think that with all of the things happening in the world right now and how events seem to be speeding up and things are happening faster, I think that this is a really interesting time to be here and to be aware that we can take advantage of some of these things, and we can put a positive spin on it rather than a negative spin, because you can always put something negative on anything, and the same goes the other way. You can put something positive. Now, many of you know that I have 3 Native American siblings that were adopted when I was also very young. I was 4 years old when my parents adopted a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old. They were also siblings, 2 little girls and a boy. And they were from the Eastern Shoshone tribe, and they were raised right along with us. And one of the things that I really thought would be interesting is to look up what were some of the traditions that the Native Americans, and in particular the Eastern Shoshone, believed about the eclipse, because I know that many Native American traditions and the different tribes believed different things around the eclipse. So what I found is this, because this is actually really kind of a cool place to start. The Eastern Shoshone, like many Native American tribes, had cultural beliefs and traditions regarding celestial events such as eclipses. While specific information about the Eastern Shoshone's beliefs about eclipses may not be as widely documented as some other tribes, we can infer some general perspectives based on Native American cosmology and beliefs. So one of the things that was a thread throughout all of the Native American tribes that I researched is that they believe it was a time of harmony and balance, something that could promote that. And what I want you to do, while I'm describing this, is think about how we can apply that into this eclipse that's coming up tomorrow. If you're watching this on Sunday, you might be watching this on Monday, the day of the eclipse. Maybe the eclipse doesn't really mean anything to you. Maybe you don't even know there was going to be an eclipse. But many people will go out of their way to experience a full solar eclipse like what's happening. So many Native American cultures, including the Eastern Shoshone, believed in the interconnectedness of all living beings and the natural world. Eclipses as significant celestial events were often seen as moments when the balance of the cosmos could be temporarily disrupted. Therefore, rituals and practices aimed at restoring harmony and balance may have been observed. So there's a little bit of they believed that the natural balance, the rhythms of nature, this was a disruption of that. And this was a time when you could actually focus on bringing harmony and balance back into daily life. So let's look at it in our modern context. This is a perfect time to really focus on bringing harmony and balance into how we present ourselves in the world. Now, there is a spiritual significance that was actually really awesome. Eclipses were often imbued with spiritual significance. They were seen as times when the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual realms could blur, allowing for enhanced spiritual experiences, visions, or insights. The Eastern Shoshone may have engaged in ceremonies or meditative practices during eclipses to connect with the spiritual aspects of this event. Mythological narratives. Like many indigenous cultures, the Eastern Shoshone likely had mythological narratives or stories that explained celestial phenomenon, including eclipses. These stories often featured celestial beings, animals, or forces that played roles in the eclipse's occurrence and were part of the larger cosmological understanding of the universe. You know, I will tell you, and there's only one more on this little list, but my Native American brother, his name is Bert. He just turned 60 last month, and he's really gravitated back toward his biological roots. He's still very much part of our family, but he's been called to embrace the cultures and the traditions of the Eastern Shoshone, and he brings this wisdom and insight to us as his adopted siblings in such beautiful ways. And he has this brilliant calmness to his person that is really, really beautiful. He's got this, you know, at this point, it's a long gray-white braid that goes down his back. And he's just this beautiful, shiny soul that you feel good when you're in his presence. And I think that most Native American cultures and indigenous people were so connected to Mother Nature, to the rituals of growing up, the rituals of understanding the cycles of the planet and the cycles of the seasons. And when it came to things like eclipses, there was deep meaning to these because we are all interconnected. We're all connected. And I think that this is a really amazing time to kind of go back to those kinds of thoughts, especially if maybe you've been thinking that this, you know, you've kind of heard some crazy things, that this is an eclipse where they're going to try to do something to scare us, or, you know, trust me, I've gone down thought processes and rabbit holes of all kinds of things, and I've realized that even though it's good to be aware, it's better to pull yourself out and be on the other side of what I believe it's to, you know, be on the other side, but be on the timeline that supports your highest beliefs and the things that are taking humanity to the highest good. You know, there's a really amazing movie called Interstellar, and it's a movie you might be familiar with. And I've seen it probably 10 times because to me it has got such beautiful messages, and it has the message too that time is linear. You know, there are multiple, and there could be multiple timelines going on for the same human being. And I mean, if you have not seen the movie Interstellar, I would highly suggest that you put it in your queue and look it up, because I believe that there's so many things that we don't know, and we need to keep our mind open to, because the realm of possibilities that I believe we can experience and partake in is endless. And I believe that the highest sign of intelligence is when we get new information, we're able to change our mind. You know, this is what I see in some people. There's a woman who I've known her for probably 25 years. She's in the same city as I am. We were in the fitness industry together, and so we knew each other. We knew each other fairly well. And I've watched her journey looking at perspective completely opposite of the way I look at it. And she's very prolific the way she posts on social media, so I'm able to sometimes look at what she's doing, and I can see that it feels so unaligned to the natural order of things. But if you don't see it, then that's just your path. So, okay, so the final thing on this is practical observation. In addition to spiritual and cultural interpretations, Native American tribes, including the Eastern Shoshone, also made practical observations during eclipses. They may have noted changes in animal behavior, environmental conditions, or other phenomena associated with eclipses, contributing to their understanding of the natural world. And then this is how this wrapped up. While specific details about the Eastern Shoshone beliefs and traditions regarding eclipses may not be as extensively documented as for other tribes, the general principles of harmony, spirituality, mythological narratives, and practical observations likely shape their perspectives on these celestial events. And I really do believe that it's a moment to reflect. In fact, then I wrote a small list of 5 things that I believe are, and these are just some thoughts that I believe that a solar eclipse can help us maybe transform in small areas or big areas, because it can be a reminder. So the first one is transformation and renewal, right? The second one is unity and collaboration. I mean, you think about the swath that this eclipse is going across. It's going to be a total solar eclipse that will last in some parts for 4 full minutes. And if you've never experienced a solar eclipse in person, I've been lucky because I've been fairly close to places that have had solar eclipses. And it might not have been a full eclipse, but to experience it is pretty cool. And it's interesting the path that this solar eclipse is doing across North America. And I know many people travel for that. It also brings reflection and reevaluation, because this is a beautiful phenomena of the spectacular things that we get to experience and the things that we don't really know and understand completely. We can look at them from a scientific model, or we can look at them from a more spiritual model. And I'm not talking about a religious model, I'm talking about spiritual and the thought process that we are unlimited love and light. We are these beautiful beings of consciousness, and it's amazing when you really drop all of the pretenses of what we think we are and what we hope we are, but what we know we are, right? It also brings opportunities for change, which I really love. And then the last thing I wrote on here was spiritual and cultural significance. So then I found this. Many cultures attach spiritual and cultural significance to eclipses, viewing them as moments of alignment and cosmic energy. This can inspire individuals and communities to tap into their inner strength, resilience, and creativity to navigate turbulent times. I really love that. I think that I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this solar eclipse. I've heard some negative stuff flowing around, and I bring it into my awareness for a minute. If it shows up there, I mull it over for a second, and then I let what my intuition, my soul, what does that say? And then I discard it pretty quickly, especially if it's negative. We can choose to stay on a positive path, or we can choose to go down a negative path. And I do think as human beings on this dense 3D planet, that there is something about the negative, the train wreck, all the things that we say we don't want in our lives, we give our attention and our time to. In fact, the most valuable commodity you have as a human being during this time is your attention, your time. What you give your time to expands. So give your time to the things that are beautiful and the things that raise your consciousness. It's the only way to walk through not just these times, but through life. So now I just want to kind of go through a couple of notes that I had, and I actually was able to disconnect from all of my technology. This was the first time in 22 years since I started my company that I have not been on email. And I was disconnected from my email for 9 days. And it was awesome. The only thing I had was this. Now, I did have my phone because in case I was needed for an emergency, but I don't have my email on my phone. I don't do any banking on my phone. I don't really do anything on my phone. I like, first of all, to have the privacy. And I know that our phones carry a lot of information that we might not realize that we don't want on there. But so this was a really beautiful, reflective time for me. And when on the very first morning of the first day that I was disconnected and away from it all, I pulled out my journal, and I actually sat for a minute and just thought. I really didn't have anything profound come in. At the very beginning, I think this is really normal. In fact, if you're a journaler, if you're a person who tunes into your higher self and asks, what does my higher self want to tell me today? You will get some of the most beautiful things, but it might take a minute. You might need to listen. And I think we're so after fast information that we don't put patience into practice, right? So the very first thing I wrote was this: it's a powerful time for planting seeds. So I think that this is probably going to be the theme of these notes that I took, because it is a powerful time for planting seeds in every area. Because when things are turbulent and things are tough, this is the time when many things are the most fertile. And the seeds that you plant when you're in this valley, I've talked before about peaks and valleys. When we are in these deep valleys, there is fertile soil there. And what you do there, when you plant the seeds of creativity, productivity, personal development, growth, enlightenment, when you plant these seeds during these times, this is the perfect time to do that, because then they have time to take purchase and they have time to grow, so that once we come out of these times, you have these beautiful, flowering, vibrant things that you've created and planted. So it's a powerful time for planting seeds. Stay positive and push forward. We are aligning with something new. Gratitude is so powerful for us right now. And these are all things that I wrote. And some of them might feel a tiny bit random as I move through them. But to me, that is true, the gratitude piece. Gratitude is so powerful for us right now. Because think about it, if you can stay in a place of pure gratitude for what you see, for what you have, for the gifts, the health, the lessons, just staying in a place of gratitude. This trip I was on was a backpacking hiking trip for a few of the days, and a couple of the days were really, really, really tough, and I was carrying everything on my back. And part of what I wanted was a disconnection, not just from my technology and away from, I live in a city, I live in Salt Lake City, it's busy, I needed to get away from that. And I love living where I live. I love the city. But I wanted to truly be in nature for a while. But I developed a huge blister on the bottom of one of my feet. And there was some physical suffering during some of these hikes I went on. On 2 days in a row, they were 15-mile hikes. And there was some steep elevation during a couple of them. And I did have a moment where I thought, what am I doing? Why am I making myself so uncomfortable? And then immediately my brain said, be so grateful for this gift of when you get through the hard things, and when you put yourself through things that you know are going to be hard, you can do anything. And the payoff is there. In fact, I think that's one of the things that's missing in today's modern world, with some of the generations that maybe, I see out there, is there's no suffering. And I'm not talking about the suffering of, losing someone, or I'm not talking about those kinds of things. I'm talking about the suffering of doing something hard, maybe, and let's just take physically hard, physically challenging. We live in such an abundant society with so much food, so much convenience, that we don't have to work hard and suffer physically to help make to stay alive. So that's just an example. So gratitude is so powerful for us right now. And I very quickly, as I was having some physical suffering, flowed into a place of gratitude. And I also, while I was having some of my most painful moments with this, especially this big blister, because it was not on the side of my foot or on my heel, it was on the bottom of my foot, on the front, right below my toes. And it was the size of like a silver dollar, huge. Luckily I was prepared, I had all the things to help it, but it was painful for a few days, even after that. But I pushed forward. So take care of yourself and stay spiritually connected. You know, there's nothing like getting through a very hard day, something especially physical, where you're having maybe some self-inflicted pain, if you will, but then you're resting, you're nourishing yourself, you're hydrating. You know, I was with a couple of very good friends, so I had connection, we had conversation. It was really nourishing and beautiful. Keep your eyes on the prize. You know, I said this to myself several times, but now I'm saying this to you, to me. Keep your eyes on the prize. And this might be the prize, if you look at it in the very, very long term, when you transition into the next life after this one, you know, into heaven, into whatever your belief system is on that. Keep your eye on the prize as we go through these times. What does that look like? The way we come through this with such brilliance is by staying true to all these principles and getting through the hard stuff, right? Realize your self-worth and your pure divinity. You know, I'm writing this to myself. Realize your self-worth. Keep your eyes on the prize. You know, so realize your self-worth and your divinity and what you came here to do. You know, remember what you came here to do. It might be just to be and vibrate in pure, unconditional love. Because then too, you affect the collective when you do that. Maybe you think, well, I don't know what my purpose is, or I don't know what I came here to do. I'm not doing this big thing or that big thing. You don't have to do a big thing, like a big thing out there in the world. It can be you being true to who you are as pure, unconditional love. It can be simply that. And that right there ripples out into the quantum entanglement of affecting the collective. That is beautiful. So remember what you came here to do. Pay attention to your intuition. You know, this is, I can't reiterate this piece enough. You know, pay attention to your intuition. That is your guiding compass. And I will tell you, I've had times when my intuition said to me, don't do this, or do this over here, or pay attention to this. And it was slight enough, or I wanted to do this other thing enough that was the polar opposite, that I pushed that aside. And I always paid the price. Always. I always paid the price on that. This is one of the most important, this is one of the most potent, extremely potent times for planting seeds. Almost couldn't get that one out. So after I wrote, pay attention to your intuition, I wrote this. This is one of the most extremely potent time for planting seeds. And I said this at the beginning. This is potent. We need to understand on a deep soul level that these are potent, powerful, energetic times that we're in. And plant those seeds. Everyone that's listening to this knows what I'm talking about. You're thinking in your mind what I'm talking about, right? Plant your seeds. Make sure that they are watered and nourished. So don't just plant them and then forget about them. You know, you've got to nourish them. You've got to water them. Of course, hypothetically, there's these things that we, you know, if you're here to be pure unconditional love, nourish that. Be that. Think about that. You know, I know when I'm in a socially frustrating situation, maybe somewhere I don't want to be, or I'm in a place where there's a long line or whatever, and I start to feel those little niggles of frustration, or this is, why is this happening, and there's incompetence up there, I immediately pull myself in and I surround myself with a funnel of pure light and love, and I beam it up and then I beam it out. And then it brings me calmness and clarity, especially in a situation where I need to be there to maybe get something done. And it changes the state, not just of myself, but I can feel it change the state of the people around me as well. I can feel that. Try not to let yourself fall into a funk. That's easy to do, right? And it's easier said than done to pull yourself out. But try not to let yourself fall into those funky times, in those moments. It's a new life. See it with new eyes. I think it's time to say, okay, this has been a long 4 years. Last month was 4 years since the whole world shifted, and it shifted fast and hard, right? So it's time to see the world with new eyes. Tell a new story and trash those old stories. Trash the old stories. If they don't serve you, if there's something that you have been doing that maybe has identified you, it's your identity, and you can't imagine what would happen if you weren't doing this thing or being this person or letting the things that you do in your life that no longer serve you, but those are your identifying thing. Think about, here's a good example. Someone, because I know several people like this, and it brings them joy and there's no judgment. But think about people who love, love, love really fine wines, and they know everything about them, and they know what the wines that match with a certain food, and they know about the vineyards and where they grow, and they know about the nuances, and when you swirl the glass and the legs of a really, beautiful Cabernet. Well, I mean, I've had my share of glasses of wine, so I definitely know about this, but this becomes an identifying factor for some of these people. And even when alcohol no longer serves them on a health level, they can't let that go because that has become who they identify with. They're known as the person who can pair a beautiful meal with a beautiful glass of wine. And what would happen if that wasn't their reality anymore? Who would they become? So we need to be willing to change our story, release the stories that no longer serve us. We are still who we are without the physical trappings of the things that we've trapped ourselves with that identify us, right? Take everything you've learned and allow yourself to fly. Look at all the things that you've been through up to this point in your life. Release the old stories and allow yourself to fly. It's time. It's time. It's so important to take care of yourself right now. Sleep, hydration, getting into nature. If you have the opportunity, like what I just had, to take a few days and truly disconnect, you don't have to go do as hardcore, go on these big long hikes, and you don't have to do that. You can actually do a little bit of what you call glamping, as far as go camping or go hiking, but then at the end of the day you take a nice shower and you sleep in a really comfortable bed. It doesn't even have to be all the full big ones. Take a 3 or 4 or 5 mile walk around your neighborhood, or have a connective space with people that are in your tribe. If there's people in your area that you haven't connected with for a while, that are in your tribe, get into a space with them. Create a space, create a place where you can do guided meditation together and breath work together. And that might be out of your comfort zone, but incorporate that so it becomes comfortable, right? So it's important to take care of yourself. Your heart is calling. Your heart is calling. Answer it. I wrote that and I was like, yeah, when you're out in Mother Nature to the extent that I was, you hear these deep things that come from your inner self, your higher self. Your heart is calling. Answer it. I wrote the first one. I wrote, your heart is calling. And then I just wrote, answer it. Answer it. Answer it. Sometimes you might want to say this. I wrote this in parentheses. Tell them I'm asleep. Your heart is calling. And I wrote answer it, but then there's this little thing that came in that said, tell it I'm asleep. Tell my heart I'm asleep. No. This is not the time to be asleep. This is a time to plant seeds, right, guys? You don't have to enjoy the process of intense growth, but you can always trust that it has your best interest at heart. Today even I changed the Band-Aid on my big blister. It's almost all the way healed. It's still a little bit tender. But I was appreciating the intense growth that I got as I pushed through that. And think about all the things that you've gone through. And this is on a micro level. This is a very small thing, because I think we have these physical moments of growth, but I think our spiritual, our emotional, our growth we get as a soul consciousness can be a lot more intense and a lot more difficult than the physical part, right? So you don't have to enjoy the process of intense growth, but you can always trust that it has your best interest at heart. And I think we lose interest when we think this is not for my higher good. Why am I doing this? Or why am I putting up with this? Or why do I have to have this experience? Sometimes we have to move through intense experiences before we have access to the light. Sometimes we have to experience these intense things, and they seem dark and hard and difficult. But we have to experience these before we can have access to the light, and not just the light, but then the intense light. The light is so beautiful when you come out of these hard things, right? Every single time. And I will tell you, every single time I've gone through something very difficult, when I come out the other end, I always tell myself, wow, I would not understand how beautiful it is in this moment, in this time, if I hadn't gone through this. And this is sustaining as the difficult times come in, especially when it's something difficult that you never expected you would experience. And if you remind yourself of this, that we can't experience the intense light without these intense moments of growth, that's really powerful. And that's been really powerful for me. Your greatest struggles are the pathways to your potential. You are not being punished. It's because these struggles, these great struggles we go through, these are the pathways, these are the guidelines. This is the beauty that we get, what we get. We get to our highest potential. We're not being punished for anything. This is not punishment. You can get goodness, grace, and healing from even the most terrible experiences. You just have to realize that this is what you're getting. And walk through them with grace, right? So I found this really beautiful, it's like a little meditation, and I want to end it with this. In fact, I actually have a couple things after this, but I actually had this moment, and I don't know where this came from. This what I'm going to share with you did not come directly from me, but I went through this little. It was something I was listening to, and it was while I was on my trip. It was on an app that I have that had some guided meditations on it, and it was basically it was, put your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and listen to my voice and say the words to yourself. So if this resonates with you, this is a really good time to actually do that, and this is only going to be a few seconds. So put your hand on your heart. You can put both hands if you like. Feel your heart chakra. Close your eyes and then just listen to my voice. I am a divine soul on a sacred journey. The wounds that are healing are where the lights are most active within me. Where pain gets my attention is the divine wisdom within, asking me to notice and learn something helpful and compassionate. My scars are signs of wisdom gained. The light can and will assist me in transforming even the most difficult struggles into holy paths of grace. Healing shall manifest completely, generously, and lovingly according to the divine timing for the spiritual benefit of all beings. I am grateful, strong, and blessed. And amen. Right? So I listened to that several times. I actually opened that up, and then the next day when I had some light, because this was the first time I listened to this, it was nighttime, I wrote it. I listened to it a few times and I wrote it down. And then I thought, oh, this will be beautiful to share with you. So I'm going to end with a few things. Step into purpose and creativity. So step into your purpose. Planting the seeds while the soil is rich. It is so rich right now. I want you to remember that. It's time to release negative energy. Take action and step out of your comfort zone. Hold your vision. Hold your vision. Trust must be unconditional at this time. When you tune into your intuition and your inner guidance and the feeling is right, it feels right. There's not anything negative. Don't trust the things that don't feel right. But trust must be unconditional at this time. When you have those intuitive hits, trust must be unconditional. Trust that it's guiding you into the right direction. Be true to yourself and your life path. You will always attract the way forward and overcome all obstacles. Let your intuition come through loud and clear. That's a really beautiful place to end it. I think that, this time can be amazing and life-changing, and the deepest part of the growth that any of us ever experienced or believe we would ever have. I would love to hear what you think about this. I know that if you made it to the end of this, in fact, my new setup here, it doesn't tell me how long I've been going, so yes, it does at the very bottom, 36 minutes. I had a feeling I would kind of go on, especially since I skipped last week. But if you're still here at the end, I thank you. I know that if we were to meet in person, we were to spend some time together, we were to have a meal together, have a cup of tea together, we could probably have some beautiful soul connections and an understanding of this beautiful time to be alive. And I hope and I have faith that this is where you are, in the realization that this is the most beautiful time to be here. The energies and the exponential growth that we're all getting, you couldn't get this at any other time in history, in human history. So I'd love to know what you think about this. What seeds are you planting? Maybe you've been planting seeds and they have grown to some beautiful things and beautiful fruition. I'd love to hear what those are too. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you have a beautiful week ahead. If you're watching this prior to the eclipse, I'd love to hear if there's an eclipse moment for you, or maybe you were lucky enough or blessed enough, or you just live in the path of the eclipse. I'd love to hear if you were able to experience that firsthand. So have a beautiful day, have a beautiful week ahead. It's a beautiful time to be here. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next time.